sung that song a little longer. I was just like getting into it, and then it was over. It was great. Well, speaking of getting into things, we're into our Intimate Living series, and we're talking about specific character traits that can help us, foremost, develop an intimate relationship with Jesus. But also these same character traits are the ones that will help us develop intimacy with each other as well. We've looked at attentiveness and authenticity, commitment, consideration, desire, encouragement, harmony, interdependence. Last week we talked about honesty, and today we're talking about respect. I've often enjoyed one of Aretha Franklin's catchy tunes. She was dubbed the Queen of Soul, and she sang a song about respect. Among the lyrics were some like this, quote, "All I'm asking for is a little respect when you get home. RESPECT, find out what it means to me," unquote. Whether male or female, rich or poor, educated or uninformed, we all need a little respect. Even more so than just when we get home, when we walk through the front door. We've often heard the phrase, respect is earned. Well, truth be told, that's a phrase that's often forthcoming from lips that are looking to withhold respect from another individual, as if it were plausible, as if it were a plausible excuse to free oneself from showing respect. Well, while that phrase is not a false statement, it is an incomplete statement. Yes, respect can be earned, but it's also something which can be freely given. Even when attitudes and actions are actually undeserving, that's the greater gift of respect. Giving it, providing it when it's unmerited by another's behavior. Now, we know the power of disrespect. Disrespect is the root of many of life's struggles and strifes. It pushes to dissolve friendship. Disrespect busts careers and marriages, even leads to murders and wars. And we've seen it in politics and heard phrases like this, "I respect the office of the president, just not this president." We've witnessed it in families when kids struggle to respect their parents because of a do as I say, not as I do child-rearing mentality. And maybe we've seen it in the office place when the boss just went off and just said, "You know what? How can you be so stupid?" If we're going to strive for intimacy in our relationships, respect has to be among the personal qualities we develop. Think about your life for a moment. At what time in your life were you most respected? Maybe it was in a particular position you had. When was a time when you were least respected? Maybe it was because of something that you did and you lost people's respect. What emotions do you feel when you're demonstrating respect to someone else? Like if you're at the airport and a soldier's coming home and you walk up and you talk to them about their service and how much you appreciate. What emotions does that fuel when you're demonstrating respect to someone else? And on the flip side, how quick did you experience a reversal in attitude when you realized you were being disrespected? Probably didn't take very long to have a change of attitude. It's quite a roller coaster ride, respect is. Jesus stated succinctly what we've called the golden rule in Matthew 7:12. "So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." Now, in New Jersey, it's do to others before they do unto you. But we're not talking about New Jersey, okay? We're actually talking about what Jesus said. And if you're from New Jersey, I apologize. You know, our world is such where we can't tell jokes anymore. Jesus said succinctly, "Do to others what you would have them do to you." His statement is rooted in respect. And the subject of respect has many broad applications. And once again, Jesus' advice encapsulates all of these and once again proves worthy of implementation. So today we're going to look at 4 aspects of respect. A couple of these maybe you've never even thought about before. First is authoritative respect. You've probably talked about that and thought about that. But there's also emotional respect, verbal respect, and auditory, audible respect that we're going to talk about today. And understanding these will help us in our pursuit for intimate living with God as well as with each other. First, let's talk about authoritative respect. It encompasses leadership structures, positions of authority, and decision-making processes. Now, when we think about God in this context, we should be immediately drawn to the fact that He's our designer. He's our creator. And the role and the position that He has dictates the structure. He's God, and we are not. And because of this, it's logical for Him to be respected. Now, how do we respect our designer? How do we respect our creator? Through obedience, by following what He says. And this respect is fundamentally based on who He is and who we aren't. And for at least 6 millennia, mankind has been trying to replace God with something or someone else as their God. And it always brings calamity, either in short order or long order. And it's because it violates the order that the one true God created the world. He was even gracious enough to warn us about having other gods and the damage that that would cause. And all through the Old Testament history and all through New Testament history, it is littered by catastrophic events when God is disrespected. At times, those who have been called actually the children of God, when they disrespected God, when they tried to replace Him, they were deported, they were devastated, and at times they were destroyed because they brought in other gods into their lives. And just as these consequences, we can look back in the past and see those consequences, we can see those consequences in our present, and they should serve as warnings for the future. When it comes to living with other human beings in our daily relationships, God's actually set up various authoritative structures to help us to achieve intimate living. For instance, we could use several different ones, but we'll talk about the family for a moment. The family has a godly design and purpose. And because God's structures, has been around a while, ever since the beginning, it's been called many things. Antiquated, outdated, old school, culturally, politically incorrect, all those things. However, nothing could be further from the truth. What can't be denied is that His structure actually works. And it has worked from the beginning, and it will continue to work to the end of time. Here's one of the facts. God created man before He created woman. Now, you may not like the order of that creation. You may have designed it differently, but that's what He did. And with that order came certain responsibilities for Adam to fulfill and certain responsibilities for Eve to fulfill. Adam was actually imprinted to be the spiritual leader of his family, to be the spiritual leader of his wife, to be the spiritual leader of his children. Eve was created, and you can read about it in Genesis chapter 2, to actually be a helpmate to Adam. Now, God knows that with great spiritual leadership comes easier followership. Now, followership is not always easy, but it's easier when you have great spiritual leadership. However, many men don't know how, nor do they wish to be the spiritual leader of their family. And so what happens? They abdicate to their wife, their kids, their neighbors, the family pet, whoever wants to take it. And some women have no choice but to be the leader of their family. But this is one of the major reasons why so many families never reach their potential and various problems exist is because the husband chooses not to spiritually lead his wife, to spiritually not lead his children. And that is in the vein, that is in the effort to fulfill God-given purposes. And because of our culture's evolution and self-propagation away from structures, many resist God's origination, God's original design for family. If they don't like it, they can talk to Him face to face when they meet Him. But this is the biblical design that God created, and it works well when we give attention to our God-given roles. Now, this is the essence of authoritative respect. Respecting the role is also respecting the individual who has those positions. Now, understand, God's design is not for a wife to bring chips and drinks during the game and become the slave of the husband, and the husband just tells her what. No. You've missed the whole point of spiritual leadership if that's your view of that. However, whether you are a helpmate or whether you are in charge of the spiritual leader of your family, you are worthy of respect. Second, emotional respect. It encompasses feelings and rights as well as abilities. And so when we contemplate God in this regard, we've got to be drawn to his creative work. I mean, think about the hummingbird's wings for a moment. Hopefully you've seen some slow motion photography, some video of their wings, but even in slow motion, their wings are absolutely incredible. Or consider the unique design of a platypus. Or how about the fact that a woodpecker can strike a piece of wood between 1,400 and 1,600 Gs? A human will get a concussion between 60 and 100 Gs. And a woodpecker can strike wood between 1,200 and 1,400 Gs. I mean, his creative handiwork is just absolutely amazing and worthy of our respect. Nature is filled with wonders. Think about the supernatural for a second. Being able to raise someone from the dead, to be able to restore sight to the blind, to allow someone who was not able to speak to bring forth words, someone who was unable to hear to be able to hear the voice of their parent or their child, to raise the sick. I mean, to multiply bread and fish. This is what Jesus did. So God can certainly create emotional respect in the area of his abilities. But when it comes to his rights, the Bible just starts with the assumption that God exists. That's just the way it starts. And it tells us how he created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And this inadvertently speaks to his right to your heart as your designer, to the right to my heart as my creator. In creation, he chose to give us free will. Oh man, the joys and the agonies of defeat when it comes to free will. Instead of creating us as robots that we would be programmed just to obey and do what he asks, he actually gave us a mind of our own. He gave us a heart that beats in wonder towards certain things and not so much so in other things. And with our creation came inalienable rights from our Creator. Our founding fathers in the United States talked about 3 of them in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and what? The pursuit of happiness. And in regards to feelings, did you know that God has them? God has feelings. Love and anger and jealousy and compassion and grief and joy are just scratching the surface of his feelings. And this is important for us to understand because our actions, our attitudes can actually impact and have an effect on the Creator. That's incredible. When you think about my behavior, my actions, my attitudes can actually have an effect on God. For example, our obedience brings him joy, and our disobedience brings him grief, and it can lead to anger as well. So when it comes to living with others, we've got to show respect by giving people space to express their emotions. That's critical. I mean, if you ignore someone's feelings for enough time, you're probably going to be looking for a new relationship, or at least you're going to have a damaged relationship at best. What's interesting is that intimately strong relationships, they don't speak so much about one's individual rights as much as they defend and protect the other person's rights that are in that relationship. You will notice that uniqueness. A person that has intimacy with someone else isn't the one who's demanding their rights as much as they are protecting the other person's rights. That's sacrifice. And sacrifice demonstrates respect. And this is one of the reasons why our military men and women and our first responders, they are always worthy of our respect, even if one of them does something stupid, even if one of them forgets their training. You cannot throw everyone into that generalization and remove respect from all those groups of people. They are worthy of our respect because of their sacrifice. Third, verbal respect. It encompasses being honest in communications, being honest in our persuasion. When it comes to God, through Jesus Christ, God's Son, we have a better understanding of him. And that's because Jesus had basically a twofold purpose attached to his life. One purpose was to redeem us to God. We talk a lot about that because that has to do with our forgiveness and our salvation. But his other purpose had to do with revealing the Father to us. And he accomplished both of those. Jesus referred to himself as the truth. You can read about that in John chapter 14, specifically verse 6. He is the truth. He told the truth. He revealed the truth. He was committed to truth. And Jesus encouraged people to accept him as the long-awaited promised Messiah. But he never coerced someone. He never forced someone. He never used manipulative tactics to get their commitment. He presented the truth and allowed people with free will and a mind of their own to make his or her own choice. And that's respectable, and that serves as a great example for us to follow. He also demonstrated respect in the fact that he chose his words very carefully in how his words were presented. Yes, there were times when Jesus got upset with people, especially when, they disrespected the temple or in the presence of the Pharisees' hypocrisy. But he never demeaned anyone with his words. He never demeaned anyone with his attitudes. He never belittled people when he rebuked them. He dealt with the issue, kept it from becoming personal, and this too is a great practical example. Now, when it comes to our relationships, most of us, we probably have some room to grow in this area because we have a tendency to use our words in the wrong way. Oftentimes, our tongue gets going and we've said something that we shouldn't have before we really realize it. We insult, we demean, we tear down without giving much thought to our words. And this is why James told us some very wise advice. He said, be slow to what? Speak. To be slow to speak, slow to anger, slow to speak. So once the damage of the words is realized, sometimes it can take a very long time to bring healing. It can take a lot of effort to heal and repair. It would have been wiser for us to choose maybe different words or maybe a kinder demeanor. Now, when we were kids, we were taught this phrase: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is one of the stupidest things we could ever teach our kids. I mean, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Has everyone here, I would think that every single one of us would say we've been hurt by someone's words at some particular point in our life. I know I was when I was a kid. I know I've been an adult and been hurt by people's words. So that phrase is not one of the best things that we could teach our kids. Sticks and stones will break our bones, but words will never hurt me. Yes, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words do hurt. And because of that, as Christ followers, we need to demonstrate verbal respect with everyone. Who does that include? Well, that includes everyone we disagree with. That includes those people who frustrate us. It includes those people whose personalities, and we know, each one of us has a certain type of personality that just grates us. We need to have verbal respect for that individual as well as those we compete against. We need to demonstrate verbal respect. Fourth, auditory respect. This encompasses actually listening to others and actually hearing what's being said. God has shown respect when we follow him, when we actually do what he's asked us to do. God has revealed a bunch of do's and don'ts, and he does this not because he wants to make our life miserable. He's not a killjoy. He's not a party pooper raining on a parade from heaven. He knows what is in our best interest to bring out the purpose, the meaning to our lives, and yes, the intimate living that we so desperately desire. The reality is he knows what's best to bring out that best in life, to life. Now, we can certainly ignore his counsel. We've done that before. And it's called sin, it's called disobedience, but it never works the way we want it to. Yes, temporarily, if we involve ourselves in sin, there may be a kick, there may be a high, but with sin always comes the kickback. It always comes the severe low when we recognize that we've been disobedient to God. And because of this, it makes us wonder why we continue to struggle over and over and over again with following completely. Listening to those around us and truly hearing what's being said is a key factor to not just having success in relationships, but also intimacy. Now, one of the things I've always respected about Susie is that she'll drop everything to talk to our girls, and she'll do it with Maple too. And when Tucker starts talking, she'll do it with him. She will be in the middle of work, but if one of the girls has something on their mind, she will just stop everything. She'll put it down, and they will tell her everything, okay? They don't tell me everything. I don't want to know everything, okay? But my style is different. It is not kind of, I usually have to finish this before I can give my one. But Susie just stops isn't that true? She stops everything. Both the girls, adult kids are here, so they just verified. She'll stop and she'll give her 100% attention. And at the end of life, it's not going to be, okay, what was the inconvenience during the game? It's not, okay, the busyness to get the report done that's going to be foremost on my mind. It's not going to be any of those other circumstances that seem so important. At the end of our life, it's going to be our relationships, specifically our relationship with Christ, but also our relationships with one another that are going to be in focus. So why not start now? Begin to listen to those who are really important to you. Give them the respect of their time and hear them. So how do we do this? How do we implement this particular sermon into our everyday lives? How do we do this, do unto others as you would have them do unto you in regards to respect? Well, I want to give you some practical examples. First, respect those in authoritative positions. Now, this includes a lot of people. I mean, when you think about those who have authority, it's a lot of people. I mean, the teachers, the police, the community servants, your spouse, maybe even your child has a particular authority in some particular point, your elders, your pastors. I mean, here's the key. Answer this question and just act upon it. How would you want to be respected if you had their responsibility? If you were in their shoes, how would you want someone to respect you? And follow that up. You know, the Bible talks about we as church members making an elder's authority, making an elder's role a joy to them. And part of that has to do with answering this question. It's thinking about what you would want shown to you as respect if you had their position. And then just act upon it. Second, we need to respect those who have a different opinion than us. Now remember, there's usually more than one way of doing something. So don't get so worked up if someone chooses to accomplish a task in a different way. I mean, provide a little bit more space to allow others to do things a different way. I mean, you just may learn something in the past, in the process. Now, this happened to me this week. It was Monday. Monday night, Caitlin's cooking spaghetti. She gets the biggest pot that we absolutely have. Okay, she's got about 2 pounds of ground beef to brown. She puts it in this pot that's about this big. No lie, that pot's about that big. Sticks it on the stove. And I was coming through on a work project at home, and I'm like, you know, there are better pots to cook meat in, spaghetti, than this big, huge pot. I mean, I see her hand down there. She's, you know, digging in, stirring. She goes, Dad, I'm used to using these kinds of pots. I use them all the time. I'm like, okay, so I go and do something. And I come back through, and I'm still seeing her, and I'm like, you know, I just can't let it go. So I'm like, you know, it might just be easier if you just use a different, you know, spaghetti pot. You know, there's one. I mean, how are you going to make sure all of it's brown and it doesn't get burnt? Dad, I got this. I can do this. I'm like, okay, you know. So I go do something. I probably said something 4 times. Is that fair? Okay, she's nodding her head yes. So maybe even 5. I mean, I don't know. I just couldn't seem to let it go. There was just an easier way. Now, whether she knows that there's an easier way now or not, I don't know. But there's lots of ways of doing things, so give people a little space. Third, respect others with your words. Be slow to speak. Choose your words carefully. You have the ability to make someone's day, but you also have the ability to destroy someone's day. So choose your words wisely. And fourth, respect those who invest their time to talk to you. Truly listen and hear what they have to say. You know, when someone chooses you to talk to, whether it's kids from the back or, you know, your children, maybe your parents, when they choose to talk to you, it's probably because they respect you and they respect your opinion. So return their respect by spending the necessary time to listen. I'm sure you can imagine what the world would look like if we respected one another in the world, if countries respected each other. But can you imagine what our families would look like if everyone in the family truly respected and that was a key value? Can you imagine what our workplaces would look like if we respected one another? Or our school, if students respected the teachers and the teachers respected the students and the teachers and students respected one another. You see, respect is a big deal. Without it, intimacy will be like trying to capture the flag on a greased pole. It's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. We all need a little respect, and we all need to be sure to give a lot of it. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we just thank you so very much for who you are and the respect that you've shown us by creating us in your image and giving us a free will and a heart and a mind that we can think and we can worship freely. We can even choose to withhold that. So, Father, help us to take the respect that you have given to us and to share that with others in all of our relationships, but also with you. Father, help us to respect you by putting nothing before you, by just simply following what you tell us to do. And Father, to love you with all of our heart. Help us to hold nothing back. We just praise you in Jesus' name.